Everyone has their own ideas. No one can claim monopoly over all the ideas which are floating across in the market at any point in time, right? So everyone has a different style. So you have to be very well diversified. You have to have a great track record. You obviously look at those smaller nuances, which is the AUM of the fund, the expense ratios of the fund, some ratios, are they all good, bad? The fewer performances in the dipping cycles of the market or the bad cycles of the market, how have the fund performed, those kind of things. Those are smaller parameters which you have to kind of sometimes subjectively judge, but objectively, yes, against the peer group, against the benchmark, long performances, fund manager's style and fund manager's track record. These are the key ingredients.
We will get into the best performing and the worst performing funds over the 3-year and 5-year period. But before we do, I just want to understand, Kirtan, in terms of diversification, and that was the key point that I picked up from what Mohit said, styles as well, right? So generally when you're talking about diversification, the first thing that comes to mind is market capitalization. But seemingly from what both of you are saying, that's not enough. And you have this tendency, I think a lot of people are now gravitating towards that, because large cap actively managed have failed to beat the benchmark so often. You generally have a passive approach in the large cap space, and then the rest of it you try to generate alpha. So how do you ensure that you have that style-based diversification?
I think, Alex, what we do at our end is very simple, and taking what Mohit just spoke about a little further. While there is a quantitative way of looking at it, there is some element of quality that you will have to look while you are trying to build a portfolio. First thing is, I think it's a misconception that the more number of funds that you will really have in the portfolio will add to diversification. It actually is counterproductive. I don't see a reason why your investment amount should decide how many funds should you have. Most of us are good with 4 or 5 funds if they are well diversified. Now, if you are trying to put these funds together and build a portfolio, from a diversification standpoint, all you have to do is make sure that if you have a 10-year investment horizon, you are spread across large, mid, small equally. I mean, you and I go 12 months back, most of us would have not been really able to predict what mid and small did in 2023, right? And probably the way the markets are structured, we feel 2024, large cap will do well. But you don't know how that will really pan out. And over a 10-year period, you definitely don't know how many years will really belong to large, how many will belong to mid, and how many will do better in terms of small cap. Now, if you look at historic data also, equal weighted portfolio across large, mid, small has had lower risk, but has done far better in terms of alpha generation versus probably a flexi cap or a Nifty 500 kind of portfolio. So I think that's one way of diversifying. Another way of diversifying is, while you're trying to put these large, mid, small together, try and make sure that you also add a style flavor to it.
Yes.
Right? So probably I'm of a belief that value in large cap does really well, right? But growth and momentum in small and mid will do really well. So if you're trying to bring a large, mid, small together, try and add this flavor of value style while you're trying to pick a large cap, and try and add momentum or growth when you're trying to pick the small and mid. Now, if you've been able to do this and build a 4 or 5 stock portfolio, 4 or 5 mutual fund portfolio, I'm sure at some point in time, some part of your portfolio will underperform, but that's exactly what diversification means, right? When one style is doing well or one market cap is doing well, the other won't do well. But that's what balances out your portfolio over a 10-year period, and I think that's the way you should end up building a portfolio.
All right. So we have to slip into a very quick break, but on the other side, we'll start talking about the individual categories that I've talked about, and one is large cap. We also have mid cap, small cap, and flexi cap. So do stay tuned. We'll be back before you know it. Welcome back. You're watching the Mutual Fund Show, and we're now going to talk about the biggest winners and losers over the last 3 and 5 year period. In fact, let's start with the large cap space, where when I look at the screen and look at the data that I have, again, Nippon India, which we discussed as the biggest winner of 2023, has managed to do so consistently over the last 3 years and indeed over the last 5 years. Over the last 3 years, CAGR, they're the top gainer. And over the last 5 years, CAGR, they're the second top gainer. What are they doing right over the longer period?
Alex, I think first thing that we really have to understand is that it's slightly difficult to judge a fund's performance on a point-to-point basis.
Sure.
Right? The reason why I say this is because imagine the near-term performance of the fund is very good. Automatically, you will start seeing that the 3 year and the 5 year fund performance starts looking good, right? So that can be one angle, because the last year Nippon India large cap did very well. Now that might end up reflecting in the 3 year, 5 year performance, and which is why they are topping that chart. And the reason why I make this comment is because if you go slightly deeper in the fund, you will know that in the 2018 to 20 period, right, the fund was not doing well at all. Is because at that time also they held hospitality, they held engineering, they held manufacturing, and that theme didn't really play out in COVID. Right.
So in fact, they all took a drubbing.
Correct. So it's actually the last 12-month, 18-month performance where the same thing really worked out is reflecting on the 3 year, 5 year. Having said that, there is nothing to take away from the kind of performance that they've done, but I think rolling is a far better judgment.
Have you studied that?
Yes, on that basis also the fund has done reasonably well, and there is no taking away that the fund is very good fund in this category.
To check the monitoring post to check the radiation level. Now, regarding this is the latest information, updated information of the tsunami. Yamagata, Tobishima at 4:57 tsunami waves have been observed. Niigata, Sado, Washizaki at 4:32 tsunami waves have reached the coast. Niigata, Sado, Washizaki tsunami waves already reached earlier. But again, at 4:32 p.m., another wave of tsunami arrived. Different places have reported tsunami waves. Wajima, more than 1.2 meters. Wajima City, the height is reported to be higher than 1.2 meters. No detailed information is available how high the waves were, so it was higher than 1.2 meters. Wajima City, currently the waves of higher than 1.2 meter is observed, but the expected possible height is around 5 meters, so much higher waves are still possible in Noto region. Kiyonaga-san, the latest information. Could you give us the latest information? Yes, I've been observing the tsunami data and to see if there's any changes. Earlier, I reported to you, according to the data, Wajima Port, from around 4 p.m., the sea level has significantly gone up. So it's higher than the warning level. So Wajima Port, the sea level is still high and it remains high. According to the data on the sea level, so this is considered as tsunami waves, and we are still observing higher sea level in Wajima Port. And in Hokuriku region, the sea level is observed.
You're watching a special bulletin here on NHK World. Those were updates via our general service.
All right, so that was a live feed from NHK World, which is the broadcaster in Japan, and those were live updates that you were getting. Remember, a short while back, you had a major earthquake, which is believed to have been to the magnitude of 7.5 or 7.6 on the Richter scale, and that occurred in Ishikawa Prefecture, which is on the western coast of Japan. It is closer to the Sea of Japan side. So if you imagine the coastline of Japan, it has two major coastlines, one towards the mainland, which is towards China, and the other facing towards the ocean. The occurrence of the earthquake has taken place on the Sea of Japan side, which is on the side that faces China. The warnings for the tsunami are also occurring on that same side. So warnings and also, in fact, tsunamis that have hit. Now, we had a representative of the meteorological department speak to us a short while back just to try and help us understand the implications of an earthquake to the magnitude of 7.5 on the Richter scale. That immediately likely triggers waves, but the occurrence of tsunamis can take place for several hours after the initial tremors or the initial shakes are felt or the initial earthquake breaks out. We have already seen an occurrence of some tsunamis take place, particularly in the Ishikawa prefecture, which is the epicenter of the earthquake. And you have a few other regions as well. One of them is the Niigata coast, as well as another island very close to that. It's called the Sado Island. Both of those regions have already seen tsunami waves hit. Now, you will remember an instance in the past where a major tsunami created quite a lot of damage to Fukushima, which is on the other side of the Japanese coast, on the eastern side. And that was because there's a nuclear reactor in that region that was affected because of the tsunami, and the implications of that are long and felt for quite a while, because the water that was contaminated on account of a leak in that nuclear reactor was kept in storage for a long time, and it was only recently released into the ocean. And this was actually a point of major contention by major countries along that entire region, particularly China, speaking out very vociferously against Japan's decision to release those treated water from the Fukushima reactor. As things stand, there are tsunami waves of as much as 5 meters that have apparently hit the coast of Ishikawa, which, as I've mentioned, is where the epicenter of the earthquake is. We will try and get you more updates as and when we get them, and in fact, hopefully we'll be able to get some experts to give you a breakdown of what are the implications of this. Currently, you have Japan, which is issuing most of the updates, but there are other coastlines, as the expert that we spoke to a short while back that also spoke to us and told us that in the past there have been other coastlines that have been affected. What you can see on your screen, in fact, is what I was describing. There are two coasts, and the colors that you see, the yellow and the red is approximately where Ishikawa prefecture is located, and that is where the most severe warning is for a tsunami. It's where it's already hit. Some of those waves in that region where it's blinking red or pink is where the waves of 5 meters have already hit. In the other regions, there are waves as high as 3 meters, that is about 15 feet, that have hit already. So this can in fact be quite devastating. What we've heard is that the Japanese authorities have already instructed individuals or the populace to evacuate those regions. And in fact, we've also gotten an update from the nuclear authorities saying that no irregularities have, as of now, been found in any of the reactors in that region. As I'm looking at the screen, I see that currently it is about 5 o'clock local time in Ishikawa. You have the markets that are shut in Japan as things stand right now. Remember, most major markets around the world are on a break on account of the New Year's holiday, and there isn't much activity. Of course, it is a public holiday in Japan as well. But at the same time, you have Japanese authorities that have called for a mass evacuation. Generally, what happens when a tsunami warning is issued is that the populace is asked to evacuate to a higher region or a higher point. Let's in fact listen to, all right, let's move on and talk about where things stand here in India. In fact, let's turn to the equity markets here in India and talk about the latest updates. Of course, we are one of the very few markets that are trading in India. And let's take a look at the benchmarks, in fact. And we are trading very close to the high point of the day, but it's still a very narrow band that we've traded in. The high point is in fact 21,762. We are currently trading very close to that mark, and the low point is less than 100 points below that mark, 21,684. Understandably, the volumes are not very high in trade today. The broader market's in fact doing very well. So let's take a look at the benchmark Nifty Mid-Cap 150 index. That should give you a bearing of where things stand. In fact, up as much as 0.8% and treading new ground as we speak. The small cap index, the small cap 250 index, also trading with gains of close to 0.8% in fact. So let's also look at some of the key sectoral performers, and it's broadly green on the screen. You have just one sector that is underperforming, and it's in fact the sector with the most amount of news. You have the automotive index that is down about 0.1% or thereabouts, very little to speak of. But some of the stocks within that, take the likes of Maruti Suzuki, take Mahindra and Mahindra, which saw its tractor sales decline quite sharply during the month. Aisha also declining and losing the most ground, in fact, in trade today. We were largely expecting to see passenger vehicle makers report a not so good print for the wholesale data that came in the month of December. Let's talk about some of the other sectors. Then you have the PSU banking pack that is gaining ground and looking quite strong in trade today. And in fact, it's up about 1%. Not too much to speak of in terms of the Nifty Bank, which is underperforming in trade today, is just about flat. You have the pharma index, it's gaining about 0.25% or thereabouts. And you have media and metal. Metal has been a key outperformer in the past several sessions, and you've had quite a few of these stocks that are moving from strength to strength. Now, I must say that this is what we're dealing with is breaking news, and we will continue to bring you updates over the course of the coming hours. For now, we have to slip into a very quick break. Do stay tuned. This is NDTV Profit. Welcome back. You're watching NDTV Profit, and we're bringing you live updates from news that is broken in Japan. A major earthquake taking place in the Ishikawa prefecture on the western coast of Japan, leading to damage, of course, on account of the earthquake. The visuals that you're seeing on your screen are taken by an individual and was posted on social media. And in fact, that is when the earthquake broke out. The result of that earthquake, and something that Japan has had to contend with for many years now, is the threat as a result of the earthquake of tsunamis occurring. And in fact, very soon after the earthquake, tsunami warnings were issued across the entire length of the eastern coast of Japan, which faces the Sea of Japan, and that also faces the mainland of China. Now, what has occurred is that the Noto province in the Ishikawa prefecture has already experienced very high waves to the tune of 5 meters, and several other regions on that coastline. And what you can see on your screen right now is the regions that are marked in the red are very close to the epicenter of that earthquake, and where you've already seen very high waves. And the regions that are marked in the yellow, and there are 5 major prefectures that have been that have said that they are likely to face tsunamis, and those are Niigata as well as Toyama, Yamagata, Fukui, and Hyogo. All of those in that western coast of Japan. And they've been asked to evacuate. A lot of people in that region have been asked to evacuate. Now, it's also been said that in a very short while from now, there's going to be a press conference that is going to be addressed by the meteorological department in Japan. For now, the authorities have called for an evacuation of those regions, and they've also said that there is the possibility of more quakes going forward. 7.5 on the Richter scale is what has already occurred, and 7 is where it could occur going forward. And what we've identified, or what we found out by speaking to a leading expert from the meteorological department in India, is that tsunami could occur for several hours after the incidence of an earthquake. For now, that's what we have for you. We will, of course, continue to bring you updates over the course of the next coming hours. Do stay tuned. This is NDTV Profit.
Markets trading flat on the first day of 2024. Nifty above 21,700, Sensex below 72,200. Nifty Bank in the green. Broader markets outperform. Tsunami waves have hit the Sea of Japan after the land of rising sun has been hit by a 7.4 magnitude earthquake earlier in the day. Bajaj Auto two-wheeler sales rise on robust domestic dispatches. Meanwhile, Maruti Suzuki's annual sales cross milestone of 20 lakh units for the first time ever. And railways on the fast track eyes 12 lakh crore rupees investment over the next 5 years. Railway Minister tells NDTV Profit that 2.4 to 2.6 lakh crore rupees investment is optimal. And currency traders turn to riskier exotic bets as RBI keeps the rupee stable. That's in NDTV Profit exclusive. Hello and welcome. You're watching Large Trades. I am Agam Vakil, and in this show we take you through all that has happened through the course of the day with respect to bulk deals, block deals and volume buzzers. Before we move on, a quick look at the markets, which are fairly quiet at the moment. We aren't seeing too much traction. Well, it does seem like we are looking at a bout of consolidation coming through as far as benchmarks are concerned, even though they're currently trading near days highs, and both the benchmarks have in fact turned into the